one has to wonder what Hamas is actually hoping to do here. Because of this large number of casualties within the Gaza Strip, it looks almost like they are trying to maximise the number of dead in Gaza so that pressure will be put on Israel internationally, because everything else that Hamas is doing is actually failing to win for them. We can't avoid the fact that Londoners and people all around the UK are aware of these sorts of attacks taking place in Paris and elsewhere in Europe, and they are therefore slightly concerned that this could happen here. I think that the reason that people sometimes here feel that there is some sort of disproportionality about what's going on now is that really most of those attacks on Israel aren't reported because they don't result in deaths. And I think that the news reporting here, it's slowly coming out now, is somewhat influenced by the inability of journalists in Gaza to be able to speak freely. We've seen now a Russia Today journalist kicked out of Gaza for mentioning and showing a picture on Twitter of where rocket launchers were. We've seen Washington Post journalists, we've seen Wall Street Journal journalists, we've seen French newspaper Libération, all of them, whenever the journalists who are embedded in Gaza have criticised or shown Hamas fighters, they've been intimidated, said that their families have been threatened and kicked out of Gaza. That's why people here don't understand the proportionality of this. They don't see the other side. We know that there have been British-born jihadis who've gone to train in the Middle East, and we know that they're coming back here. This is something we hear about all the time in the news, and we know that those killers in Paris were actually meant to have been trained in the Middle East as well. So this is a very real problem.
David Cameron's promised the British electorate that they'll get an in or out vote whether we should stay in the European Union, but not before he reforms Britain's arrangement with Europe. So that's why he's so against this appointment, and he's been trying to convince Angela Merkel and other European leaders that a less federalist European president would be somebody better equipped to make the changes needed in the European Parliament, and that's what he wants. He says that Europe is too big, too bossy, and interferes too much in individual nations. He thinks that Europe should only be helping when there's a trade issue or things where it can help nations, but otherwise it should be nation first and not Europe.
Once it's been admitted that there is this problem of fundamentalist Islamic and Islamist ideology leading towards terrorism, which can often be aimed at Jews, then we can start properly dealing with that problem with proper follow-up on arrests, proper convictions every time for anti-Semites, and a general zero-tolerance policy on anti-Semitic crime and any threats of hatred, violence or terrorism against Jews and against any of us who simply are targets because of our affiliation with the West. The choice of whether or not these current talks continue is obviously one made on both sides, and Lieberman has already stated that he's given the green light to the continuation of the talks. And to say that Israel and under Benjamin Netanyahu is putting forward the most extreme far-right possible person to head those talks is absurd, when Tzipi Livni, who is a left-wing politician, is in fact the person that Israel has put forward, and Benjamin Netanyahu created a coalition with her unexpectedly for that very purpose. Television's often called a medium because it's neither rare nor well done. And I think that, let's not get too grand about this. We're talking about chewing gum for the eyes here. People aren't stupid. We've brought back all sorts of other shows with new titles. The Voice is the X Factor, which is Pop Idol. Britain's Got Talent is Opportunity Knocks, which is New Faces. Strictly is Come Dancing with so-called celebrities. And even if we look at things like Ant and Dec's Saturday Night Takeaway, it's Noel's House Party without the crinkly bottom and the Mr. Blobby. Well, the truth is racism shouldn't be acceptable in football, just the same as it shouldn't be acceptable anywhere else. And if this is becoming a story over the last 9 months or so, racism in football is re-emerging as this big controversy, frankly, aren't we all bored of hearing about this? Racism is wrong in any career and any profession. I think that driverless cars is a great idea. I mean, if we look at the history, we'll see that people were probably once scared of a carriage without a horse at the front of it. And this
didn't they walk around in front of a car with a flag?
Right, but now we won't need to. We won't have human error involved. And in fact, I think this will see the end of personal car ownership and even taxis, as we'll end up with a network of autonomous cars that we can hail on our smartphones, and they will come and pick us up, drop us off, and then go to where they're needed most next. When we see things like the occurrence over Christmas of a Waterstones branch listing Mein Kampf as the perfect present for Christmas in one store, and when we see students like these at the LSE or like those at AUCA, Oxford University Conservative Association, also engaging in singing Nazi-themed songs, we can't just shrug our shoulders and say this is just a bit of fun and it's a bit of humour. And I appreciate that sometimes that might be the intention of the people who are singing the songs and making the videos, but they should know better. And if they don't know better, it's the job of our elected representatives and those at the heads of our universities to be making sure that people do understand the Holocaust better.